Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before. Today I'm going to fill you in on everything that I've been reading. So mid-monthly wrap-ups won in the poll that I put in my community tab. So I want to do this video very similar to how I did my last recent reads video, where I'm just coming to you fresh after I've read a few books. I think that's the best way for me to not let everything that I'm picking up get away from me. So let's get into it. I'm currently in the Mafia romance readathon right now, and I've finished 2 books for that. I started out with In Retribution by Courtney Dixon. I loved her style of writing when I just tried a chapter. And what really struck me with this is the way in which she was showcasing the high stakes for our hero who is gay and in the Mafia. And the way that she handles grief and Brady's PTSD. I just think it was done beautifully. Brady is the enforcer, the brother, and also the right-hand man to the head of the Irish Mafia in their territory. And after that gut-wrenching prologue and first chapter, we meet Charles, okay? And I like how her style kind of switches up when we meet him. He's out on the town, he's trying to let loose, hopefully take somebody home. And they have this whirlwind one-night stand where they both kind of freak out on the connection that's made during this steamy time together. And Brady is the one that flees out of fear for disrespecting the ghost that he's still freaking carrying with him. And I loved the surprise in this because it almost turns into a workplace romance where we find out that Charles is actually his brother's personal assistant. So they're forced into proximity, dancing around what happened between them. And I love how Brady is determined to woo and win him. He doesn't care if he has to bombard him with acts of service and care. And Charles isn't feeling it, okay? Because Charles too has his own trauma and abandonment issues. And I just loved the sort of dance and pull between them. Again, I love how she handled trauma in this book and how Charles is not willing to take mere scraps from Brady and to be with a man that hasn't fully grieved. And so those aspects, the scenes between them, I fell for. What bothered me about this book is that there's a lot of time spent on events that happened in the first book. I did not read that book. I was a little bad. Okay, I just skipped. I wanted the MM gush. But obviously I didn't need to pick that up because I felt like I got book 1 in this one. There was also a lot going on politically because his brother is newly appointed. Their father was a son of a gun who was murdered, and they're trying to figure out who is responsible for that. And although I enjoyed how she really depicts his PTSD in his job and how he's able to carry that out now, I just wanted to get back to the main romance. So I rated this a 4. I love them as a couple. Oh, I love the chemistry and the way that they sort of fed each other's need and how they had to do the work to come together. So I'm definitely picking up more from her. I had a very good time with this one. There are heavier themes. It's very heart-wrenching, but it gave me that MM goodness that I love. Next, I read Dark Hearts by Sue Brown, also new to me author. This was Cosa Nostra as well, and a bodyguard romance. My bad if I'm in a different position. I was not prepared. The camera died. Anyway, the Cosa Nostra blackmails Leon in protecting who they call the Prince of Darkness, Domenico. He's next in line to reign. He's a bit of a brat, party animal, and playboy. And there have been many attempts on his life of late. His lifestyle lends himself to these attacks, and they want Leon on the job. What I loved about this is that it's kind of a slow burn because of Leon's convictions. He's not willing to cross that line with Nico, who is baiting and goading him in terms of attraction. And because of that, Nico finally figures out or learns what it's like to be cared for. He's not at all used to men sticking around. He's not used to his bodyguards caring about his well-being above the wishes of his father. And it's really sweet between them. My issue was how fast their emotional connection kind of happened. This is on the shorter side. The "you're mine and I want you to be my daddy" happened a little too quickly for me. Although I consider myself to be well versed in this daddy little dynamic, I wanted more beats and time to be spent on that. I did get a bonkers plot that I thought was very entertaining, caretaking, and I loved how this ended. I really just wanted a few more beats on their emotional connection. I kind of wanted to be authorized. So again, this was fun. It was bonkers. I rated it a 3. And honestly, this entire series seems to be centered around alpha dominant heroes that find their littles while they're on the job. So if I'm ever in the mood for that, I probably will pick this up. I'm going to continue on with this readathon. I want to read Mafia Mistress and Mafia Darling. I'll probably just come back to you when I'm done with that. So I will be back. I can see why this book has been going around. It is a page turner. It's drama filled. I'm going to use Jen's words. It is a soap freaking opera, okay? It's also age gap goodness. Let me just calm down because I'm coming off the heels of the second book. Let me be professional. In the first book, Mafia Mistress, we're following Francesca, Frankie. She's 18 years old. She's the daughter of a mob boss, okay? And she's also playing the sort of motherly role for her 2 younger sisters that are twins. Their mother has passed, and she is determined to do what her mother could not, which is carve out her own identity, get an education, not marry into the life. And those plans are thwarted when Fausto shows up to collect. He's a very big and untouchable deal. Her father is indebted to him, and her hand is basically sold to Fausto's son in marriage. And she's whisked away to a very gilded cage, beautiful secluded island where Fausto lives, and very quickly he realizes that he wants her for himself. He wants this woman with fight, a touch of darkness, and alluring beauty. And she also too has noticed how he fills his suits out at his age. I don't know. She's not understanding why she's lusting after this stern alpha male that only sees her as property. And his son, Giulio, really isn't all that invested in the marriage beyond his duty because he has his own secrets going on. And he and Frankie end up developing this friendship of camaraderie in this trying time for both of them, okay? But this turns into a freaking game of smoldering chemistry that just boils over, and Fausto is very much an alpha that takes what he wants. And in that, okay, I love how Frankie comes live to her affinity or maybe her draw towards things within this lifestyle that she claims she would never want to be a part of. She comes live to her pull towards Fausto. Also, in his attempts to claim her, he does make a few repeated mistakes while wrestling with his very true feelings for her. And the third act gets very dramatic. It gets a little bonkers. I did not like his response to the third act conflict, especially when we're coming off the heels of all of those repeated mistakes. But I did rate this a 4 in terms of just the chemistry between them, the pull that's very much felt, the banter. Loved that, okay? It was a 4-star read for me. However, Mafia Darling was a complete shift in tone and I will say pacing for me. And I did enjoy it a lot more. And I'm going to tell you why. I also don't know why this was a duet, but anyway, I really loved the sort of shift in tone. This very much picks up right where it left off in terms of internal and external conflicts. I liked getting the backstory into Fausto and him being a widow, into why he's so adamant about his current leadership style, how he is willing to bend because of his feelings for Frankie, how he's willing to lean into his feelings for her no matter how that makes him look as a leader. I won't go completely in because I don't want to give in spoilers away, but Frankie just made me very proud. There is one thing that I just do not like in storytelling in general. I don't care if it's a heroine in a book. I don't care if it's a leading lady in a television show or in a film. I do not like when female characters bend because of their flesh. It almost borderlines on triggering for me, especially when we're not in a dark romance, okay? Possibly because reading is personal, and I don't know, that characterizes a lot of my early 20s where my words no longer held weight, and some of the people that I was in relationships knew that. What we permit, we promote. Anyway, so I do not like when the heroine makes declarations about, I don't know, a sex ban on the relationship and doesn't follow through. When she says that she's leaving and doesn't hit the door because the hero is able to bewitch her with his touch. It bothers me every single time. I don't mind a long-winded monologue, but she better walk out that door. You better give me that breakup montage because I want her to come back. But I also really need there to be a few beats where we get to see the heroine stand in her putting her foot down. And Frankie gave that to me in this book, and it was just so gratifying to read because Fausto had to grovel. It ratcheted up the tension and the longing between them, even when it was like a punishment for her in return. I love that she realizes that that's the only way that she's going to sort of wrestle some ground out of the situation where she has been stripped of all of her agency. And I love how in turn that leads to, because of perilous romance reasons, okay, it places her in a position to not only surprise him, but herself in the contributions that she's able to make to his organization. I love how there are systemic changes made in this very rigid and traditional Mafia landscape because of her influence, because of Fausto's love for her, and again, his willingness to bend because of that. I just felt like that frenetic maelstrom of allure in the first book was very entertaining to read, and I loved that. But the sort of calm and core that the second book settled in terms of their romance was just beautiful to read. I loved their arcs, okay? And that's why I'm rating it a 5. I love where they landed. I loved their romance. I love how in the end she really feels like a true equal, and he's grown because of his love for her. This was delectable. I can see why it's going around. I'm not sure what I'm gonna pick up next because I keep seeing so many freaking awesome books being like tagged, which is why I love this freaking readathon. So I will be back. I'm gonna wrap it up soon. Like I only have got like one more day. So we'll see what I pick up. I'll be back. Bye. Okay, I have to thank Melissa for this next read because she got me King of Libertines by Pam Godwin. This is the prequel novella to Sea of Ruin. Thank you so much. It was so fun to be back into this world. This is a dark historical. This follows Bennett, who is a badass, okay, pirate captain heroine, and this really covers her meet cute with Priest, who is the husband that she is estranged with in the beginning of Sea of Ruin. I just loved reading the respect that she's garnered from her crew, the reluctance that she has to let Priest join it when she first meets him, and just their palpable chemistry. I also forgot how this sets up the sort of quest and quagmire of the Compass, which is one of the last things aside from her ship, the Jade, that her father left her. And so, again, I absolutely love this. Of course, I rated it 5 stars. It's very short. I'm a little biased, but I definitely think you should pick this up first if you haven't read Sea of Ruin already. Okay. Then I read Vicious Union by Jocelyn Soto because I saw Melissa reading it. That is exactly why I loved the Mafia Romance Readathon. So many people participated, and because I was being tagged, I got so many freaking recs, and I absolutely loved it. And so, I mean, I took a major detour from my TBR and just picked this up, and this was just really like fun and fresh for a Mafia romance. The cover was stunning, and I also hadn't been in a cartel, I haven't been in a cartel romance since, Pam Godwin's Deliver series, so I was excited to pick this up. And like I said, it's fun and fresh because Serena is in Vegas with her best friend trying to get over an ex, And Leo, who is the son of the most notorious cartel boss, is there as well for business. And I enjoyed how Leo is very loyal to his family and proud of his heritage, but he is not very fond of the legacy of his father or the fact that he has had to lead this life as the heir to his cartel. And yet, even though he despises it, he's very good at the violent aspects of his role, as well as the hostile takeovers. And so we meet him when he's sort of wishing that just for a moment he can be someone else. And that happens when he meets Serena. It is a very chivalrous meet cute. This is really just a whirlwind one night stand in Vegas that leads to drunken vows, okay? And Serena learning all that she married into, and also Leo questioning why she isn't running away. I bought the chemistry between them, and why she isn't so quick to annul this marriage. I loved the cultural aspects within this, and the side characters were robust. I had a good time with this. What did give me pause in this romance was that there were these repeated time jumps, small ones. 1 week, 1 month would go by, and I just kept wanting to be privy to what had happened off the page. I wanted to spend time with them as they were sort of shuffling their lives together. And, I did kind of side eye a decision of the heroine in the third act, but I thoroughly appreciated how the author did not make that a big deal for our hero. It didn't drag on in the third act. So I thought this was fun and fresh, and I'm very interested in one of the couples that are being set up for a future book. So I rated this a 3.5 because I was feeling a little spicy after her decision, but I have thought about it. This is a 4-star read for me. I'm very excited, new to me author, and I will be continuing on with this series. I also ended the Mafia Romance Readathon with this book, and I immediately jumped into, let me get it right. I always try to be cool and remember everything off of the top of my head, but I need to refer. Oh, Deviant by Callie Hart. See, I would have messed it up. I saw Serafina from Life Between the Pages here on BookTube. She recently started a channel, so I'm gonna link it below. I saw that she gave this 5 stars and was hyped up about the series, so I immediately picked this up. And the beginning of this book completely captivated me, okay? I'll just say, I've since bought all 6 of these, okay? And we're gonna cover 2. Anyway, so Sloane is in the medical field, and she is dealing with the disappearance of her sister. For years, she's got no word. And now she has a lead. But in order to get to it through the slime ball, she has agreed to sleep with one of his clients. And said client has requested that she wear a mask and black lingerie. This client is our hero. And just the fact that this meet cute happens while she's being blindfolded makes it a sensory experience, and it just amplified everything. I love how she's able to key into his small acts of care and regard for her in what should be a terrifying experience, okay? It's very tactile, and this evening with Zeth, who is mysterious, very gritty, unapologetically filthy and stern, this moment imprints on her, and it changes everything. Nothing after this, even her time in the OR saving lives, doesn't burn as bright. And I just love that. Some time passes by and they cross paths again, where She knows that it's him because even though she never saw his face, she remembers his voice. And we learn that he's been watching for quite a while and he did not at all anticipate making contact with her. This is like suspense. It reads like a romantic suspense. It's very action-packed and he is connected to the disappearance of her sister in a way, and I was just captivated. And what like got me about this is that like Sloane, after time has passed, has transmuted all of her grief, losses, and trauma into being this like, I don't know, capable badass with a scalpel. And yet she is immobilized by this connection that she has with Szeth. And he's like, you know, this like alpha with criminal ties and like dommy kinks, and he's like confronting her to give in to them. And there's this like question that's posed if she could, or if she should lean in to that in order to get more intel from him, or if she's really just like leaning into the thrill of her desire for him. And this first book really does showcase how one can hold two truths at the same time. And it led me right into Fractured, which is the second book, which just amps up in, I don't know, every freaking way. The way that she relinquishes control, the way that they just like let their chemistry wash over them in the most delicious and spicy way. And that is in the midst of the ongoing mystery of her sister's disappearance. I love that we get more backstory as to who Szeth is and his role in the criminal organization that he works for. He is the boogeyman, okay, an enforcer to a major player within their territory. And for a boss he can no longer trust because he has recently found out that he is in fact part of the flesh trade and was keeping that from him. And I just love the way that he not only claims Sloane, but he is determined to solve this case in order to help her. And I will say, like, in addition to the freaking heat between them, I mean, this connection has Sloane bypassing all of her freaking alarms, okay? I mean, it is felt like she came with it. But in addition to that, I think the best part of this book is that, like, we find out that this like freaking Rudy alpha dummy freaking hero is also like cuddly because he is the guardian of this very like angsty teenager, Lacey. I absolutely love her character. She fascinates me. And there are trigger warnings for attempted suicide because of her. But I think one of the best parts of this book is the relationship that Sloane builds with Lacey when she has to care for her in Szeth's absence. It's a very like boots on the ground type of thing that one has to do when they're going all in with someone. And I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed these sort of reveals on her past, Lacey's, and how they connect. So much so that it really highlighted like my craving for more of an emotional like development between Sloane and Szeth. And they're very much in a position to do so. Like I said, this is action-packed, it is suspense-filled. Our characters are now dealing with espionage and going undercover when it comes to human trafficking and playing both sides. I'm very much primed for the heady power dynamics, and I found a new series. Like I said, I bought all 6. Each one is like around 200 pages, and I am here for it. So I will be back when I have another read, but so far, like, this month has gone very well. See you soon. Okay, so I am in the middle of the historical romance readathon, so I need to like fill you up on what I have picked up so far. I got a little distracted there for the first couple days, and I started off by picking up Sex and Occlumency by Graendoll. I hope I'm saying that right. This is a Dramione fanfic recommendation that I got from my rec queen Jen from the book Refuge. And let's just break it down, because I want to say this is a CNC fantasy romance, consensual non-consent, where we meet Hermione when she is unfulfilled in her relationship with Ron. Emotionally, sexually. That is my refrigerator, and I apologize. Anyway, and she opens up about her fantasies of force, and it freaks Ron out. He kink shames her, and it ultimately ends the relationship. Yet this does lead her to this anonymous fantasy service for magical beings. And what I really liked about this book is how much time is spent on her PTSD and her trauma. How it is showcased that these have become debilitating and made her life unmanageable. Like all of the memories that she has of the war, all of the repeated dreams that she's having about what happened to her. These are starting to bleed into her professional and personal life, where she is expected to be on top of her game. And I love that time is spent on this, because it really highlights how she can't continue living like this, because now she is cutting corners at work, which is something that Hermione prides herself on. And it is also where Draco enters the chat, because he very publicly calls her out for her lack of due diligence, because it could cost him like a project that he really believes in being greenlit, okay? And the heat from this argument really inspires her request from this anonymous fantasy service. And she basically applies for, or includes in her application, her interest in getting like Draco being polydeuced, which is like magical cloning, and for, you know, this clone of Draco to carry out her fantasy of force. And this service is supposed to be anonymous, but because it's run by Pansy secretly, she does let Draco know of Hermione's fantasy, because she's in fear of this being a setup. You know, Draco has been buffeting a lot of prejudice and setups that are aiming to get him imprisoned because of what happened during the war. And so Pansy's just trying to make sure that this isn't another setup to get him imprisoned for sexual assault. And so, you know, because of all of this prejudice, that's really why Hermione, like, overlooking his proposal was such a freaking thorn in his side. And so he aims to go confront her, but what ends up happening is that he gets caught up in the moment, okay? And he carries out that fantasy. And the way that Hermione breaks after that, her response to the solace that she finally gets from that moment, how she's broken down and put back together in this romance, was just so freaking swoony to read. Like, it really was. I liked the, I love the spice in this, absolutely. But I also liked how this kind of covers like the stigmas centered around like kink. I like that this is healing for her, okay? This also showcased like course correction during Steam, where I thought I was gonna get some primal play, but I'm happy that they highlighted hard limits, and I had a lot of fun with this. I rated it a 5. It was everything. This is probably like the 3rd Dramione fanfic that I have given 5 stars to, and I'm not surprised because they all came from Jen. Next, I need to refer to my like reading update here. Oh, how could I forget? I picked up She Said Yes by Tasha Harrison. This is really like what halted my historical romance readathon, because I had to get into this. This is the second in the duet that I did not know that we were getting. And my complaint about If She Said Yes, the first book, was that I wanted to spend more time with them. And so this just gave me the, now that we found love, what are we gonna do with it, that I needed, because there's so much more to Tomas and Darcy's story. Especially since their newfound connection isn't it public yet. Like, this is about Tomas falling in love with his best friend's mother, and they take that leap towards one another in the last book, you know, at his best friend's wedding. So that's really underscoring this romance in terms of stakes, while they are exploring this connection. I was dying during this book because of the way that Tomas just yearns for Darcy. Like, it's freaking everything. Like, his submission is very much rooted in service and worship, and how, like, he likes a bit of humiliation for being so gone for her. Oh, it just works so well. And I think too, now that this duet is done, I think it's a really good entry point if you've never read BDSM before, because it's really lighthearted. You know, Darcy is a mature heroine. She's a recent divorcee. She spent her life raising her children and putting everyone before herself. And so now she has Tomas, and she's trying to figure out what domination is to her. You know, what her dom style could possibly be. And they're building this dynamic between them together. Tomas is so open and gracious and patient, and they're having all of these conversations about what they enjoy and exploring those through experimentation while they're on this beautiful vacation, where the two of them are both in this transitional period in their life where they can rebuild together. And I just couldn't stand how sexy this was and how easy. Also, I liked how it sort of noted that Tomas's submission is different than what those within the life or within the circles that he's frequented would deem submission. You know, he is sort of dominant in the way that he wants to take care of every aspect for Darcy. And I liked seeing that sort of struggle, because Darcy, you know, she's a mature heroine. She has lived a life of affluence. She has more money than he does. And so seeing him try to like accommodate and like, you know, be a true partner to her was just so freaking fun and sweet. And again, like I said, this is a really good entry point for BDSM because it's really light-handed, and it was so easy between them that I questioned what the third act, aside from the obvious, could possibly be in terms of like internal conflict between them, if at all. But I loved how this wrapped up. I gave this a 5. I was delighted from the beginning to end. Tomas, some of the quotes in this that I will be breaking down in a future video, I just freaking loved it. After that, I finally started the historical romance readathon, and I finally met the Hathaways. I'm not going to bury the lead here. Mine Till Midnight by Lisa Kleypas was a 5-star read for me. Oh my gosh. I love how with Lisa Kleypas, I have noticed that, at least for me, her romances start right on time, and that I learned that the Hathaways have come into some money because Leo, you know, their older brother, has this newfound title. And I learned this as Amelia Hathaway is on her way to save him from the drunken debauchery that has become his pattern. And through that, I very quickly got the dynamic, okay, that she's at the helm of her family. She's very headstrong, a bit controlling, but it's all out of love. And as she's looking for Leo at this gaming hell, that is when she meets Cam. And I'm not gonna do like a play-by-play of this or a full breakdown because unfortunately I'm not doing a vlog, and now I'm really upset that I'm not. But it's just kind of like the way that Kleypas writes these first encounters. When Cam sees her, he is so like drawn and like captivated by her and can't really put his finger on as to why. I like that we get like his inner like mental musings where we meet him at a time in his life where he's bored. He's not at all like interested or intrigued by any of the many women that are throwing themselves at him, and yet his eyes land on Amelia, where he describes her dress as plain. Not to say that he's not attracted to her, but it is very much felt that it is more. And they share this passionate kiss under the pretense that it's going to be the last time they ever see each other, because Amelia is set on leaving the city because Leo, okay? And moving into the house that they like, you know, recently inherited. And as if it is kismet, that is where they meet again. Oh gosh, Cam. I just loved how Cam was so forward about being gone for her. How he was just a hero that continued to show up for her and insisted on having her allow him to take just a portion of her load and stress. Like Amelia is so caught up in her fear of losing her freedom, and she's so hell-bent on remaining a spinster to take care of her family, and she has so much on her plate. I mean, they inherited this freaking home that is falling apart. Okay, she is dealing with Leo and his destructive, drunken behavior and his lack of taking responsibility for his position in their family. She's got, you know, the tear caking going on for Wynn, who is still sickly from recovering from scarlet fever. Not to mention Beatrice and her kleptomania, and Poppy calling out her martyrdom. Like, this family was just so rich and colorful and rambunctious and humorous. I loved them, and Cam accepted all of it. And I loved how, ooh, he woos her into bed, and he doesn't take that lightly. How he is just so stern and sexy about it. And apparently I'm not privy to how stern, because there were changes made to this book and scenes taken out. So I need to get my hands on like a physical and earlier edition of this book. But I absolutely loved this. And I loved how Cam just wears her down, because she does fight it like every step of the way. I'm gonna be back. I'm turning off my air conditioning so we can get into the next book. Okay. I'm back, and now everything in my kitchen is popping off. I apologize for the noise, if there's any. I could just be being paranoid. Anyway, immediately after Mine Till Midnight, I jumped into Seduce Me at Sunrise, which is also not entirely accurate, because it was a comment that Christy from Christy Reads a Lot made about the angst and the longing in this book that had me jump out of the book I was currently reading and into Seduce Me by Sunrise. So I immediately clocked this trend that Kleypas has with giving me, I don't know, mind-blowing chemistry and passion between two characters that are obviously meant to be together, and then she separates them. She makes us fight our way back. Oh my God, I was dying, because Wynn and Marypen have been dancing around their chemistry and their love for each other for years. I sort of need to back up, because Wynn is the sister that is still ill from like surviving scarlet fever. And in the last book, she is tired of everybody treating her like she's made of glass. And Marypen is a man that their parents took in when he was a young boy. He's Romani. They very much saved him. They weren't prejudiced. They were just so open and accepting. Oh, I really need to like go back and finish the Wallflowers, because anyway, I loved those recollections on their backstory. But Mary Penn has loved Wynn since he was taken in as that young boy, protecting her, being her caretaker. One of my favorite quotes in this is when he talks about understanding why Hades took Persephone, because he too needed some sunshine and warmth in his cold and lonely existence. I mean, come on. This book very much expounds on, that was a weird way of saying it, this is like a continuation on the glimpse of their connection that we saw in a caretaking moment that I loved in Mine Till Midnight. And again, we get this explosive kiss filled with passion and longing between them just before Wynn leaves to go get treatment, okay? But I love how all Wynn wants in this romance is for him to accept his feelings for her, admit them, and do something about it. And when she returns after healing, she wants him to see that she isn't breakable, okay, and take the leap. You know, she's not willing to wait any longer. I love when she tells him, I'm not willing to take just pieces of you. Oh, that took me out because it really illustrated the angsty dance between them, okay? And he's really placed in a position where he needs to make a move or watch her move on with the gentleman doctor that nursed her back to health. Oh gosh, I really enjoyed this story in this. You know, Mary Penn is afraid of what he could possibly do to Wynn based on his backstory and for romance reasons. And so the reveal on that, and also his sort of like newfound relationship with Cam, or like this like new building of it, was really like fun to read. And it was heartwarming. Also, him learning to like accept himself and get out of his own damn way. It is a running joke in the family that they are meant to be together, okay? Like, why don't you just ask for her hand? Oh my gosh. Just seeing the kind of man that he is. Like how he takes on, you know, rebuilding their country home that was like falling apart, and what he really ends up coming into being that he didn't feel good enough for her, didn't feel like he had anything to offer her. Oh, once they fall into each other, I just love steam that reads like they're coming up for air. The mystery plot was interesting. I had fun with this. Of course, this is a 5-star read for me. And after that, I had to like, well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to wedge in some Sarah Cates because I am interviewing her later on today on Cheyenne's channel. I will link it below because by the time you see this, it will have already occurred. And so like, I was on her website and I found Fuck Roses, which is like a short, sweet, steamy novella centered around a reality show that's very much like The Bachelor, and Alice has been dumped, and the romance is between her and the cameraman that's supposed to capture her humiliation. They are forced into proximity because of a storm, and she is stuck with this broody cameraman that has been mocking her the entire time, and she quickly learns why and how he really feels about her. Now, I do think for as short as this is, like, she packs some story in this. I wasn't that connected to them, even though I had fun with this. I'm definitely a reader that picks up a lot of novellas. I do not need a full-length romance to be satiated, but for some reason I wasn't that invested with them, even though that this was fun. So I rated this a 3. Then I picked up Handsome Devil, which is a best friend's dad's romance. I don't know how I just said that. It's also a road trip romance, and where the heroine's best friend is getting married in Vegas, and she finds herself on a road trip across country to that wedding with her best friend's father, who is this hot surgeon who's broody, grumpy, and a little bossy, okay? I loved him. And Layla is innocent, and she's optimistic, and she's sweet, and she also doesn't really enjoy his demeanor. He's sort of judgy and has this like jaded edge to him, but it works. I mean, he's lived a lot more life than her, and they're like perfect foils to one another. We get to spend like 95% of this romance with them alone on this road trip where their chemistry is just building and gets to a like scalding point after Layla, I don't know, requests sex lessons from him, because I mean, she wants to be prepared for the future. This was just like, it's very low angst, low drama, but it's tension filled, and they just get caught up in each other. I listened to the audiobook. Will Watts' British accent just did it for me. Like, I had a good time with this. I rated it a 4, okay? Like, I really enjoyed it. And that is all that I have. I am going to wind down, get prepared for this freaking interview that I am very excited for, and I will be back with my next read. Bye. So a lot of time has gone by. This recent reads video is going to be late in terms of a mid-monthly wrap-up. I apologize. I wanted to film this in clips so this wouldn't happen, but you're not here for excuses. I'm going to fill you in on everything that I read up until the end of the historical romance readathon, because that was the 15th. So I did pick up Lady Isabella's Scandalous Marriage by Jennifer Ashley. This is the second in the series. It is a marriage in trouble where Isabella and Mac are just working their way back to each other. And I rated it 5 stars. I loved the mention and the recollection of their whirlwind and all-consuming romance and not so long courtship, because they were just so madly in love that they chose to elope on the night of her coming out party, and she scandalized society by choosing the notorious rake Mac Mackenzie, and just like the lore of that I was really into, because 3 years into their rocky marriage of him being drunk and disappearing, she chooses to leave him. And at the beginning of this book, she's returning after 3 years, I believe it is. And it's not to reconcile, it's to warn him of the fact that his art is being forged and that she believes that someone is posing as him. I love that he's an artist. I loved that he does erotic paintings and how that's used to sort of bring them back together, or at least like turn up the heat between them. But more than that, it was just like the way that Mac cleaned himself up and did the work to be a better man, how he misses his wife and how he is hell-bent on winning her back. I also found it so moving that he has fallen more in love with her as she's matured as a woman. Those moments were moving to me. And I respected how like Isabella doesn't know what to make of this new Mac that he says that he is, that trust that's been broken. It really takes her being forced into proximity with him to see the changes in his character. And for them to work through their problems together. I really enjoyed how she has always maintained her confidence in his talent. Like despite everything that she lost due to their marriage in terms of family and lost in their marriage with him, I'm just gonna say it, there is a trigger warning. You can like skip ahead if you're a person that thinks that trigger warnings are spoilers, but I did not know about this and it shocked me. So there is a trigger warning for miscarriage in this book. And just all of the stuff that they were sifting through together, I enjoyed reading. This is like compelling storytelling. The mystery element or the plot had a lot of antics that I found to be fun and also kind of poetic in that Mac really learns to be grateful for all that he has and live his damn life. That's all I'll say about that. But I really enjoyed this book. Again, this was 5 stars. And it was just like a mature romance. I love the marriage in trouble. I love how there still was so much love between them, but they had a lot to work through. So, I'm glad that I'm continuing on with this series. Then I kind of went, yeah, that's accurate. I act like I have so much to wrap up on here. I went on a little bit of a spiral after the interview with Sarah Cate. You know, she gave us a recommendation. And I just completely devoured this series, His Boy Next Door by R.J. Moray. Yes. And this is an MM, age gap, BDSM romance. And before I get into the illicit drug that this series is, I mean, this was like tailored catnip for my reading tastes, okay? I had it all. Before I get into that, I want to say or recommend that if you are going to pick this up, I really feel like you should just start with the bind up of what, you know, R.J. Moray calls the first season in their romance, because each novella really reads like a chapter and that bind up feels like the first book. It follows the same couple, and I really feel like probably reading these as they were being published kind of felt like akin to fanfic, like reading an ongoing fanfic that's still being read, like waiting for a chapter, you know, to drop. Like it was very much that. And I did not know that there was a bind up until I had gotten through like 10 of them. Also, because I binged them, I was able to see the arc in their romance and the arc within our 2 heroes. And so I honestly don't feel like you're gonna get that if you just read like 2 or 3. Again, like each novella reads like a chapter, and the season is really like the first book, in my opinion. Oh my gosh. But this romance, this is really like a coming of age and coming into kink for Shannon, who is 18 years old. He is this do-gooder who is a people pleaser, who doesn't like to make waves, and he is just discovering his sexuality and really his just own identity in general when he meets Jack. By accident, his basketball lands in his backyard, and when he sees him, he doesn't know what to make of his attraction, but Jack sure does. And he also clocks his people-pleasing and like polite nature. One thing that I clung to in this is that one of the first things that Jack asks him, okay, is, how old are you? That was needed because like there's a lot of inner dialogue going on here. And like once the attraction is felt, it's just like Jack needs to verify. And this romance really doesn't kick off until Shannon finds his way back on Jack's porch after his mom, you know, has him invite the lonely new man next door to dinner. And I love how this is structured because there's a repetition of that where like Shannon is making the decision to continue on. And, you know, Jack notices how Shannon is responding to just his mere presence at the door. And so this starts out with him sort of giving him a task and a test. And it is up to Shannon to follow through with that. And oh my God, this is erotica, okay? It is very spicy. It is very steamy. But it really surprised me with the emotional punch that was landed because I'm trying to be careful because I've continued on past what I'm going to share in this wrap up for this video. But this first book is really about Shannon accepting his homosexuality, figuring out his need for submission, and the best part about it, other than consent being king and consent being sexy, is Jack's focus, attention, care, and control. Because what's underneath like Shannon's need to please is his like need to actually be seen. You really don't realize until later on in the series, or further along in the book, I'll say, is how like emotionally neglected Shannon has been. His mother doesn't think much of him. Why go to college? He's not even that smart. His father is absent. He doesn't even have any real friends. It's like he is just flying under the radar. He has no confidence at all. And Jack is like the first person in his life to ask him like, what do you think? What do you want? What are your desires? Like, Jack's there to tell him that he's smart and he is capable and he does have a future that is laid out before him. He just has to choose which way he wants to go. I also loved how Jack was just like, if your family cannot do this for you, then I will keep you and treasure you because you are fucking perfect. Oh, it just took me out and it surprised me. Oh my gosh. And again, like, I recommend that you read like the bind up of the first 12 novellas, because you're not going to get that from like the first 2-3 novellas. Oh, and it was just catnip. I just could not stop reading it. And like I said, like, yes, this is like spicy, okay, it's very kinky, it's very informative, but it's surprisingly moving. And I'm absolutely loving it. The majority of these I rated a 4. They're very short. One, I rated a 3. This makes sense. And I totally understand how Sarah Cate sees this as comforting. Like, I get it. I get it. So anyway, highly recommend. But yeah, like, is BDSM, age gap, like those things already work for me. So I was really into this. Like I said, I've continued on, but like, we'll get into that in my next recent reads video. The next book that I read to close out the historical romance readathon was, let me get it right here, 7 Years to Sin by Sylvia Day. I found this on KU for Read and Listen, and I thought, let's try it because of the synopsis. Now, Lady Jessica is the picture of propriety, which is what really catches our hero Alistair's eye, because not only is he captivated by her beauty, but also like intrigued by the discipline that it must take to maintain that image, okay? And that's like, I really like that off the bat. And like, his friend is marrying her in this book. And on the night before her wedding, she's walking her dog in the garden and she comes across Alistair in the middle of a steamy moment where it is quickly realized that he's being paid for. And I picked this book up because of the description of the scene, this steamy scene that's supposed to imprint on her. But like, reading it though, like her stumbling across them locking eyes and him continuing, it was a lot, okay? And one thing that I also liked about this romance is that like, after that moment that does imprint on her, she is very intrigued sensually, and her new husband isn't put off by that. I really enjoyed that, like, because this does like flash forward after the prologue where she's lost her husband. She's now a widow, and it's known that she had a great marriage where he doted on her and he actually set things up in a way to where she would be taken care of whether she wanted to remarry or not. And I just love that she had a great marriage, and this isn't really like a book of sexual exploration when she has the second chance with Alistair, okay? Because now that her husband has left her some land in Jamaica, she needs passage on his merchant ship. And when he finds out that it's her that will be aboard, he makes sure that she's the only one there with his crew, and he sets out to seduce her and make up for lost time. And what I loved about this is that, you know, she's still very much a lady, she has a companion, but she's very open to the idea of, you know, leaning into their connection. I liked that. It was very sexually free. I also have to say that I was really into the side plot with her sister, and that there are trigger warnings for domestic violence and spousal abuse, because her sister is married to this man who is very obsessed with her, but in a sadistic and toxic way. And her sister also has a secret admirer who's been pining for her for years, who never was good enough, didn't have the title and enough to offer her. And so I love that side plot, and the conversation centered around that. Yeah, how like open, you know, Jessica was to Alistair, the conversations that they had about him being like a man of the night, and the sort of shift in tone in terms of him that took as a young man, that working, and it very much being the reason for him being able to be successful, but it also costing him. She is acquiring this territory in Jamaica that is a plantation, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversations that were centered around slavery and indentured servitude. So there were a lot of things that I really liked about this, and I rated it a 4. So I think like my historical romance readathon went really well. I didn't get to as many historicals as I wanted to, because I was distracted with other reads, but it so far has been like a 5-star studded month. I mean, let's just like look really quickly here. I will do like a full wrap up at the end of the month, hopefully on time. But so far I have read 19 reads, and out of those 19 reads, I have had 8 5-stars. So I'm interested in seeing how this month goes. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm picking up so far, and I will be back with another video soon. I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that you can consider subscribing and sticking around, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.